Welcome to another edition of Riding Home. Dean Legge and Matt DeBary, both from Dawg Post here. Spring has sprung, Matt, which means the recruiting is starting its momentum towards the winter over the weekend. You got a shot to take in the MVP camp, which has been going now for more than 10 years and has evolved too. But one guy that you got to see over the weekend was Brock Vandagriff from the Athens area. I wanted you to touch on him as well as all the other stuff that's been sort of percolating in the recruiting world.
Yeah, I was able to see Brock, who, as you said, Prince Evan Christian in the Athens area, and he's got a really live arm. Will probably be one of the top quarterbacks in the country for 2021. Going to take a few visits, going to Oklahoma for a little bit. He's going to see Florida, Tennessee. He just came off visits to South Carolina, Clemson. Obviously, he sees Georgia all the time. He was at one of the Georgia baseball games over the weekend, I think on Saturday. He said he was there, so he's in Athens a good bit. So he's definitely a guy to know, and he was really impressive on Sunday at the MVP camp, as were a few other quarterbacks in Georgia too. So a few guys emerging, but he's definitely the guy with lots of offers right now, will be able to go wherever he wants. So he's a big deal in the 2021 class there. So we'll see. There's been a lot of visits the past few weeks. Obviously, Georgia's been able to host some of the top prospects in the country. And if you're on Dawg Post, you know all about that. So we'll see. Spring games coming up. It will be interesting to see where these 5 stars are going. How many will be at Georgia? How many will be at Clemson? Probably a couple guys will be at both. So it seems like Georgia's going to be fighting off Clemson and still Alabama and Auburn to an extent, but a lot of Georgia-Clemson battles in this 2020 class. So it's going to get really interesting pretty quickly here after spring break.
You know, the interesting thing about Georgia's situation as it relates to the spring game, which of course is usually about recruiting more than it is almost anything else.
Right.
Is that Georgia is going the day before Easter, which is not convenient for some of us on the phone. But at the same time, when you start talking about when other teams are going, most everyone in the ACC and the SEC that matters, which would mean in the ACC just Clemson, are going before Georgia. So, for instance, Clemson's going on April 6th. Alabama and company are going on the 13th. Alabama, LSU, and Auburn, I believe, are all on that weekend. Now, I could be slightly wrong with some of those, but I know Alabama and Tennessee are that weekend, and I know Clemson is the April 6th.
That seems early, but
well, I mean,
that's just me.
I think if you're we can talk about Clemson a little bit, but Georgia, at the end of the day, is essentially the only power who will be going on their day. I mean, Florida State, I don't know if they matter really at all anymore, but they go early compared to Georgia. Everybody's, Georgia is late. I'll just run down the list real quick. Vanderbilt is in a couple of weeks on March 30th. South Carolina, April 6th, so they're the same day as Clemson. LSU is April 6th. Arkansas, April 6th. Ole Miss, April 6th. Kentucky will go on a Friday, which I don't think is a bad idea for the Cats. Friday the 12th. The Gators will go the 13th. Alabama will go the 13th. Mississippi State will go the 13th. Texas A&M will go the 13th. Auburn, Missouri, Tennessee are all the 13th. And lo and behold, the only team that's on the 20th is Georgia. And so you do, I mean, I don't think there's ever any confusion. Georgia always does things a particular way on purpose. And they've done this to isolate themselves and to get the most attention. Meanwhile, Clemson... Go ahead. Well, Clemson.
No, I'm saying that's a really good point. I bet if you ask Kirby Smart, when he would want the spring game, he would probably say after everyone else and kind of on our own, like you just said. So it'll be a big deal.
I'll point out too, because they are a traditional power, they're not a currently power. Florida State is on the 6th, so the 6th is a little bit crowded as well for national recruits. But as you and I have talked lately. Just in planning for travel and so forth, Uh, we were talking about who Georgia will target, and you
It's
said,
all the
well,
5 stars.
who are the 5-star
Yeah.
guys?
Yeah.
And that's who they're going to go after.
It's easy to, it makes my job easier because I know who Georgia's going after now. They're going after the best players in the country. It's not really a big mystery. There's still spots out there at some positions that, still need to be, broken down by the staff, and they're figuring out who they want to go after. But for the most part, you look at the 5 stars who are uncommitted, and those are the guys that this Georgia staff has gone to see in January and February and made a big deal of late. So we'll see how many of them come to Athens next month. It should be a lot of them.
Yeah, and let me just add this too about the spring game. It's I know this. I know maybe 10 years ago I had my fill of spring games. I think it was the spring that Joe Cox took over, and there just wasn't a lot left to be done. I mean, after that was almost 10 years of doing it for me. Spring games really are about the future. They just don't matter at all about that day unless something dramatic happens in terms of injury, which has been extremely rare. So I think it really is about who are they going to have, in town. Is Brian Breesy going to be there? Is Eric Gilbert, Miles Murphy, all these guys that Georgia is recruiting, typically who are national guys. Maybe is Kendall Milton going to be in town? Darnell Washington, the high level tight end, is he going to be there? Will you see Broderick Jones show up, a committed player? There's just so many guys that Marshawn Lloyd, guys who are traveling from California, Maryland, etc. It will give them the ability, although not ideal because the next day is Easter, it will give them the ability to not have to make choices. They can go to Georgia and go to Alabama. They can go to Georgia and go to Clemson. But they can't go to Clemson and Florida State. They can't go to Florida State and LSU because they're all on the same day. Same thing goes for Auburn and Alabama. Kirby and them just said, hey, look, we're going to do it on this day, and that's all there is to it. I think it's a good move, frankly.
Yeah, the attendance will be big, too. I know the past few years when I talk to recruits after the spring game, they always talk about the number of fans that have shown up. So ever since Kirby's been here, that place has been pretty packed. So assuming that's probably the standard moving forward at the spring game. But there's always a ton of big-time targets in multiple classes, and that's going to be the same this year as well. So I'm not sure on Brian Breesy. It wouldn't surprise me if he showed up in Athens, but right now there's no set plans to do that. But he's got a visit to he'll be at Oklahoma, I think is what they said, and then he will be at Clemson's spring game. That they do have planned. But
okay, well, keep up with the day-to-day recruiting on Dawgpost, DAWGPOST.com. If you're listening to us on iTunes or YouTube, we appreciate it. And go over to the site, dawgpost.com, DAWGPOST.com.